Well, hey, good morning. So good to be with everyone and see you again. Matt, welcome back. How's things?
Thank you. Very good. Getting some sleep. My eyes healing.
Wow,
Yeah.
life's good for you, buddy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you and made wine this weekend, or
We did. We
yeah.
did.
I was not offered a bottle, but my beard's grown my Santa beard out. Booking appointments for December. If you guys need a Santa for rent or hire, give me a call. Matt, we're going to talk this week. Oh, by the way, speaking of the kids and sleep and all that, I was away outside of Philadelphia this week with a client. And one of my dear friends, one of my favorite people in the world, Carrie, who's a sales manager for this company, we're chatting and we were on our way back from dinner, I think. And she said, "Hey, how's Matt's baby? Did Matt have the baby?" And I said, "What? Yeah, like how do you know about this?" And because she's never met Matt. And she said, "Oh, I watched the show and I've been following along." So it just touched my heart and made me realize how connected we are to so many that we don't get to see or speak to directly to, but realizing how much blessed we are for you guys to trust us with your time and invest that time with us. So thank you so much, and it's kind of cool
Yes,
to be
thank
connected.
you. Thanks, Carrie.
You have fans out there, yeah? How about that?
Yeah, I'll be signing autographs in the hallway after this.
Right. Matt signs closed deals, the back of closed deal contracts. So
Oh, I like that.
there you go. Yeah. So, speaking of our connectedness and relationships, we want to talk a little bit about EQ this week, one of my favorite topics. And EQ, of course, is our emotional intelligence. And as you've heard us say before, and you've probably read on your own, EQ has a much greater predictor on our life success, on our career success, than our IQ. Our EQ is far more important than our IQ.
Mm-hmm.
And another little anecdote or observation, and this just came to me over the past few days as I was in with a bunch of people. I realized people with higher EQs tend to be happier and seem more fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think from my perspective, candidly, EQ is something that I've had to work on throughout my career. Early as a salesperson. Not that I was taking IQ tests, but I was worried about what I knew and how to close deals and really just the craft of that, which is important, but not necessarily being self-aware or empathetic. You always joke about my empathy working
or lack thereof.
Yeah, working on it. So for me, EQ is something that's really interesting. Not only seeing the importance and reading about the importance, but witnessing the importance in my own career of the ability that when you concentrate on something and you're really intentional about it, I think EQ, you can grow it in some ways.
Absolutely. And Matt, you have done a great job growing your EQ over the past 12 years that I've known you. And Matt talks about early in his career, what was he focused on? And he said closing deals. And think of that more as the technical aspects of closing deals, the mechanics, the process of closing deals. And we know people that are very technically sound as sales professionals, that they move through the process, but they do it in a pace and they do it in a manner that makes you feel, when you're part of the process or observing it, that makes you feel like their needs are more important than yours as a customer, right? And that's a challenge when we put our needs ahead of the customers and we start driving things according to just our schedule and we drive things to meet our needs. That's when we put our needs ahead of the customer. And people with high EQ, people with very strong measures of EQ, they're able to always keep the other person at the center of the problem, the other person at the center of the relationship. And the more we look to serve others, I think the higher our EQ can become. It's one way to grow our EQ.
Yeah, and for me, I tie it to listening. I think just bringing it back to myself earlier in my career, I was listening, but I was just being quiet to be like, okay, great. Here's the next question. Here's the next step in the process. And it's unfortunate as I look back, but that active listening and being able to be empathetic and just slow it down and talk about how it's affecting them and actually caring how something's affecting them or affecting their organization versus just okay, that's so bad.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. Anyway, are you going to sign?
Yeah, right. And going through your list, and you just pointed out a strong distinction between successful salespeople, successful communicators and those that aren't. And that's they listen to understand versus listening to respond. And so often we encounter people, whether you're a sales leader or a general leader inside the organization, whether you're part of the leadership team, whether you're a salesperson interacting with customers and clients, whether you're a spouse or a friend, we often see these people that are listening to respond versus listening to understand. And listening to understand takes action. That is an active, that's a verb, right? Listening in that sense is a verb because we're doing something. And I think when we listen to understand, it takes or needs empathy to be effective, right? And it actually takes some concern and care for the other, that you want to help the other get better or have a better outcome.
Yeah. And another aspect of EQ, self-regulation, I think there's an aspect of that as well, especially when you get a curveball or you're in a confrontation or you're trying to communicate with in a heightened situation. I think that self-regulation is extremely important because I know a lot of people that just start yelling or just start raising their voice or maybe think as they yell.
You're not looking this way by chance.
No, you just happen to be on the screen right now. We're chatting.
I'm passionate and emotional. I'm not angry, as I always have to tell somebody.
But that self-regulation is not only important EQ wise, but that's something that controls emotions. We tie it to the assessment, objective management. Objective management.
Yeah.
Tongue-tied this word. OMG's assessment that we use for salespeople. It's not do we throw chairs
right
in the middle of a meeting. It's when you get that curveball, are you able to remain calm and listen, actively listen to be able to diffuse the situation and clearly communicate
and stay in the moment.
Yeah,
have that self-mastery to be able to stay in the moment. As we talk about EQ, our baseline definition for EQ that we like to use with our clients is EQ is made up of three components. The first is how aware we are of our own behavior. Right. Number two, how aware are we of its impact on others? And number three, do we care enough to do something about it? Right. So there's that awareness, and then there's a care. So do you care enough to make a change and to do something about it, and to practice that self-mastery, maybe the patience, to go from being somebody who listens to respond to becoming somebody who listens to understand. And when we start to make that transition, when we make that leap in our mastery or our behavior, we start to become a better connector and communicator. Some other things we can do to improve our EQ and demonstrate that we have a higher level of EQ, another way to say that is to demonstrate that we care, is to make eye contact. Right? Eye contact is one of the greatest things we can do as a communicator. And there's reasons why we will not maintain eye contact. When you see people that struggle to maintain eye contact, it could be for many reasons. A few could be a lack of confidence in themselves, maybe a lack of desire to go deeper. And when we make eye contact with somebody, it almost invites them into conversation. So oftentimes people who don't want to go deep into a conversation or don't want to have questions asked of them, they'll avoid making eye contact. Other times it's just because people don't want to connect with another. They just are telling stories and they don't care to read the eyes of the other person to see if they're engaged. Like when I just looked at Matt, his eyes, I could read his eyes and they told me he was listening to me. He cared and was following along. If we have somebody who looks into someone, if you don't want to look into someone's eyes to see that feedback, to create that emotional contact, connectedness, it could be because you just want to tell stories or, you're caring more about your own self than you are the individual in front of you.
Yeah, another example of that is when I eat the leftovers in the fridge when I'm not supposed to. And Paige, I don't like to make eye contact there.
Because you don't want to get caught?
Yes.
Have the confrontation?
I'm not sure. I think it was Lucy. Lucy got up there, she took her stool, and she ate them.
Yeah, you can't even blame an animal. You need to get a dog or something in that house. So, but yeah, and that's another reason is like guilt. And that's a great point because I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and so many leaders we work with, as hard as this is to believe, so many leaders we work with struggle with imposter syndrome. leaders get to a point where they start to question themselves and wonder, is everyone around me questioning my leadership authority? Is everyone around me questioning whether or not I can be doing this? Sales reps show up to meetings with customers. Sometimes it could be someone high in the org, and as a sales rep, you feel like, do I belong here? Are they going to expose me? Am I going to get? So they just want to not be noticed. I think that's one reason why so many salespeople won't call up in an organization, and they lack executive engagement because they're much more comfortable going to who do you like to refer to as purchasing agents?
Oh, Boiler Room Bob in my previous role, and VP Vince, and
and there's people who are real comfortable going to people that are lower inside the organization, but willing to take meetings with them. And what we find is those people tend to have the ability to say no, stop the process, but they don't have the ability to say yes. So as a sales rep, as a salesperson, that's a good takeaway. It's a good reflection. Am I meeting with people? And if you look at your calendar, and let's say you had 10 meetings this week, if you go back and you look at all 10 of those meetings, how many of those 10 people have the ability to say yes to something versus say no and just stop the process? And if you find yourself in meetings with spending most of your time in meetings with people that can only stop the process and say no, yet lack the authority and the power and the position to say yes, we need to reevaluate how we're spending our time. That was a tangent. It had nothing to do with emotional intelligence, but it has to do with our confidence, which fuels our emotional intelligence.
And I know we can't unravel this all today, but something that came to mind, it's budgeting season for many people. It's personal reviews. It's all that stuff that's about to happen. How do you balance emotional intelligence with results? And there are people out there that are very number focused, managers, leaders, and you can almost feel that someone's a number. Did they hit it? Did they not? Others probably are too people focused, and it's always, next year is going to be a better year. So how do you balance that performance with that emotional intelligence?
Yeah, so I think that, and this goes for yourself too, right? So for self-management, not just managing others, but for self-management, and even the way we engage with clients and customers is, I think it comes down to love versus being kind. And, this concept we've been talking about with a lot of our clients of, do we have a loving culture or do we have a kind culture? And kind cultures, they'll avoid those tough conversations. They'll say, next year is going to be better. Oh, you didn't hit your number. We're in the midst of a pandemic, right? We're not in the midst of a pandemic. Recession. I don't care what the problems are. And I don't say that callously. I say that out of love, because the most loving thing we can do as a leader is help someone be successful, right? The most loving thing we can do as a sales rep is help people find solutions even when they're saying, I'm not sure I need it. Because we know there's power there. We know there's goodness on the other side for them. So how do you balance that? Well, I think numbers are very important. That's the scoreboard. They tell us if we're doing what we should do. The softer side of it, and I don't see emotional intelligence as being soft for some, right?
Right.
We're not, and what we talk about isn't all fluff. It's results, and it's not just results as a sales rep, but it's results in life. How many of us are willing to let people fail inside of our own home? Probably too many of us. But I think the most loving thing we could do for somebody as a leader or as a person is help them be successful. Not necessarily just be kind and placate people and say things that you think they want to hear. And I think our society has perverted the term love, right? So you're going to take me on another tangent. But, when we think about love, I think our culture and our society now says love is permissiveness. If you want to do it, if you think it's cool, if you like it, who am I? Yeah, go do it. Where true love is telling somebody the truth, is loving somebody enough to want good for them. So I think that, I don't know if that's a long answer to your question, but do you have a kind culture, which allows permissiveness and failing? Or do you have a loving culture, which means I'm going to have the uncomfortable, courageous conversations that allow somebody to be successful?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's very pertinent, especially in our coaching and where we are for the year, starting to have those conversations. Again, just to reiterate, numbers are very important. I think if you're having successful one-to-ones and dialogue and consistent meeting schedules, manage expectations, that gets a lot easier. But not a softer side. I think there is a place for that empathy, that listening, self-regulation in those. Did we truly position them for success? Did we do everything we could as an organization, or did we just let everything kind of brush it under the rug and just move forward? Didn't hit the numbers.
Yeah, and that's with our clients and customers as well. When we see that there's a need they have and we can solve, and we know there's a better outcome out there for them, a better solution. Are we willing to have those courageous conversations that allow them to see it, even at moments where they think they need time, or even at moments where they think not right now, or is this not worth the investment? So EQ is essentially, how much do I care about the other? How willing am I to put my fears aside and be able to lean into someone else and put their needs first, and how we put others first. So I think that's a great takeaway, to be reminded of the importance of others, the importance of living an others-focused life that's based on how do I service someone and help them get to places where they need to go. And that's not always mild, and it's not always meek. It oftentimes requires courageous leadership.
Yep, agreed.
Matt, you had some stats you might want to dump on our friends before we leave about not just the goodness that leads to better living, more happiness, better relationships about emotional intelligence, but some things that you like to share regarding the success of people that have a higher level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring some stats back. EQ is 4 times more reliable than IQ in determining success in your field. How many of us hire for IQ?
Right, technical capabilities.
For skills, aptitude. Do we evaluate EQ in that mix?
Right, and how do we evaluate EQ, right? And is it just observational, or is it at all, or do we use assessments? One of the things we like to do when we work with leadership teams is we like to start our sessions by going around the room and saying, hey, think of a great leader that you worked with in the past and tell me some traits. What are some of the attributes that made them great? And I just did this yesterday with a small group, and I only asked 2 people. So they went around the room. We ended up with like 10 to 15 adjectives. One of them was intelligent. Everything else was, you knew how they felt about you. They cared. They understood. They connected to my family. They knew this. They made me feel I could do more than I thought I could do myself. It was all about how someone made them feel, the leaders, and how they made them feel, how they empowered them, how they made them grow, how they made them better. Only one adjective was about intelligent. When I pushed on that a little bit, I said, tell me more about that intelligent. It was product knowledge and connectedness. So it wasn't that this person was smart. It was they had a great command of our own product knowledge, or our own products, and they made me feel important. So it was really an EQ measure.
Wow.
So all of them. And we find that all the time, that when we talk about great leaders and you reflect on a great leader in your life, it's going to always be about the way they made you feel and the EQ they had. So, you go back then as a learner and you say, look in the mirror and go to your journal and you say, how am I doing with that? What would people say about me? And do we live a life? Are we intentional about that? Are we intentional about what people might say about us? Are we intentionally living in a way that says, I want to have this impact on people? Or do we just go through our to-do list with facts, get it done, and be more tactical about our execution versus our connectedness?
Well, you said journaling. That goes into the next one. Nearly everyone, 95% of people, think of themselves as self-aware, yet only 15% are, according to the Harvard Business Review.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that think they're self-aware, and you can't see them being in a room with them for more than 6 seconds at a time.
And then finally, leaders with empathy perform over 40% higher in employee engagement, decision-making, and coaching. I love the last part of that, coaching.
Yeah.
Because we get a lot of leaders that come to us in discussions of saying, how do I coach better?
Right.
So
be connected,
yeah.
Be concerned about the other. Now, is there any practicality to this? Can I make more money if I have a higher level of EQ, Matt?
Actually, $29,000 more per year. I forget what study it was. I don't have this one, but I just came across it. It might have been Harvard as well. But people with high EQ, on average, make $29,000 more a year.
I don't know about you, but I could use an extra 30 G's. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to reflect this week on how am I pouring into others? How am I being intentional about my connectedness with others and how I make them feel? And how much do I really care? Right? How much do I want to have that impact of leaving someone better after a conversation than I found them? How willing am I to have those courageous conversations with customers and clients? And how willing am I to help lead those that have been entrusted to me in a loving way and help them find more than they could find on themselves, on their own, because that's what a leader does. So thank you guys so much for being with us. We hope that you embark on the same self-discovery journey this week with some of those reflection questions. And we hope next week when we see you, you're making better eye contact with us and you're a little more emotionally engaged. Thanks for being with us. Take care. God bless.